Arweinydd Group UKIP.
Leader of the UKIP Group, Neil Hamilton.
The First Minister is trying to compete with the Leader of Plaid Cymru as a sort of Jeremiah of Wales today in relation to Wales's future outside the EU. And I'm sorry to hear him say that he's against lower taxes on business, because the Irish Republic has very successfully used a lower rate of corporation tax to attract a huge number of firms into Dublin, particularly in the financial services sector. So it seems to me wholly counterproductive to Wales's interest to rule this out for the future. But last week the First Minister said in relation to the single market, I don't believe you can have access to the single market and at the same time say you want full control over immigration. Well, that's exactly what we do have with the South Korea trade agreement. Why isn't that going to be possible for us in Britain?
How can you have full control of immigration when you have a large open border with the EU?
Sorry, I missed that.
How can you have full control over immigration if you have a large open border with the EU?
Oh, well, there is, Theresa May referred to this in her speech this morning. We did have a common travel area with the Irish Republic long before either of us were members of the EU. And this is a practical question which does need to be solved, and there's no reason to think it can't be solved. But what I'm interested in, as a result,
Let's allow the leader of the UKIP Group to be heard, please. Please.
As a result of Theresa May's speech at lunchtime today, she has clarified a number of issues, not all, I accept, and what the First Minister said about the Customs Union certainly needs further clarification, but she has clarified the government's position. Can the First Minister now clarify what exactly is the Labour Party's policy on managed migration from the EU?
I've explained the policy, and that is freedom of movement to work, something close to what the Norwegians have. It takes away the fears of some people that people move to a particular country in order to claim benefits. Whether that's true or not, we know the perception was there. And it is, I think, a reasonable position to take that most people in the UK would accept. Now, I mean, he is right about the situation, and it does need to be solved. Unfortunately, no one knows how to solve this. The reality is, my concern is, he's right with the common travel area, but then for the first time ever in history, there will be wholly different immigration policies on both sides of that border. Ireland, it is true, is not part of Schengen, but it will have freedom of movement. If you want to come into the UK, go into Ireland. You can get into the UK without any checks at all, without any kind of control, and that is the reality of the situation. In terms of customs, are we then to see the return of the customs posts on that border and customs posts in our Welsh ports? That issue hasn't been resolved at all, and the effect that would have on the throughput of vehicles and people through those ports. What I fear more than anything else is that somehow Northern Ireland gets a better deal in terms of customs than Wales does. That will channel traffic through Kenryan and possibly through Stranraer in the future at a cost of jobs in the Welsh ports. So whatever happens, the situation, whether it's the Welsh ports or the Northern Ireland border, has to be the same in order to ensure that fairness of treatment.
Well, the First Minister is talking about all sorts of transitional points, which inevitably have to be considered. We had similar difficulties when we entered the EU 40-odd years ago. There were problems of transition. These can be dealt with. But what I'm concerned with is that the First Minister is always looking on the black side of things and imagining the worst. He did this in relation to Donald Trump in the United States. I've raised this with him several times. I've raised this with him several times, and he said that Donald Trump believes in America first. It'll never be possible to agree a free trade agreement with the United States. What is clear is that it's not going to be possible for the EU to agree a free trade agreement with the EU. But Donald Trump himself has said in the last 24 or 48 hours that he would move very quickly to make a new trade deal with the UK. I'm a big fan of the UK. We're going to work very hard to get it done, and done properly, good for both sides. Can I not persuade the First Minister to have just a glimmer of optimism for the future?
Well, I do not believe that the American government will want to have a free trade agreement with anybody that is anything other than very, very positive for the US and negative for the other party to the agreement. What Donald Trump has said, he wants to tear up the Trans-Pacific Partnership, he wants to tear up NAFTA and have an agreement with the UK. Does that mean then we will see beef full of hormones coming into the UK market and undercutting our Welsh beef farmers? Does it mean that we will see that, for example, his party was campaigning against TTIP, saying this is a bad deal? Does it mean that if TTIP is back on the table, he will now support it? That the party will not support it? Does it mean, for example, that the UK will collapse at the knees if the US government says you must open up your public services to privatisation? Because that's what they'll press for. I have to say, I am in favour of good relations with the US, of course I am. I'm in favour of good relations with all countries. But I am sometimes touched by the sweet naivety of the leader of UKIP and his fellow traveller, the leader of the Welsh Conservatives, when they think that the world will be an easy place and the free trade agreements are easy to negotiate. They are not. The free trade agreement between the EU and Greenland took 3 years, and that was just about fish. The agreement with Canada was 7 years. Other agreements take 10 years. I've looked at the list of tariffs that are involved. There are tariffs on hats and umbrellas, for goodness sake. Agriculture is always excluded from free trade agreements, almost always. It's not there with Canada, it's not there between Norway and the EU. The agricultural tariff is nearly 50%. Welsh farmers cannot live with a tariff on Welsh lamb and Welsh beef of 50%. And anybody who thinks that they can is letting Welsh farmers down.